building credit is not as hard as you might think. A lot of people are now learning the importance of building a good credit score and are curious on how to get started. Today I'm going to be discussing how to build credit, the factors that determine credit score, and the big mistakes to avoid in order for you to build your credit in the fastest way possible without any hiccup. If you're new to the channel, please smash that subscribe button, hit the like, hit the notification bell. I really appreciate it, guys, and without further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, first thing I want to talk about is how they actually determine your credit score. I think this is important that we discuss this first before I lay out the actual steps, the tactical planning that you need to do in order to build your credit. So first thing that determines your credit score is your payment history. Now, the banks want to see a long history, and we'll get to that, of you making your payments on time, no late fees, you're not running up your utilization super high. They want to see a good track record of you making the payments on time before the statement date is actually due. A big thing, I already kind of mentioned it with payment history, but your utilization amount, if you only have $1,000 of available credit and you're charging it up to $800, $900 every month, even $700, $600, that's not going to look too good on your credit score, guys. So I really recommend when you're first getting started and you don't have a very big credit amount, don't pay it down quickly so you don't jack up your actual utilization. I know that was a really frustrating thing with me when I first started building my credit because, I'd frequently make $1,000, $2,000 purchases, but my credit limit was only $1,000, so I couldn't build my credit with those purchases. And if I did make those purchases, it would a lot of times hurt my score because it jacked my utilization way too high. Next is length of credit history. Now, this is a big factor, and it's another one that's pretty frustrating when you're first getting started because it's like, I want to build my credit. How do I get started? I want to have good credit, but it really takes time, guys. You have to have a long length of time that shows a good track record of low utilization, making your payments on time, making your full payments. So actual credit length history is another factor that they determine or that they use to determine your credit score. Last thing I want to talk about with how they determine your credit is your new credit activity. If you go start 3 new credit card accounts, pull out a car loan, pull out a house loan, if you do too much activity too quickly, it can actually hurt your credit scores, throws up red flags to the banks and the credit union. All right, now that we've talked about how they determine your credit score, let's talk about what you can actually do to build up your credit. So step number 1, guys, this one's probably going to be the most obvious, is get a credit card. Start putting your gas on it, put your groceries on it, put whatever expenses you have on there. Like I mentioned though, don't jack your utilization too high. Quickly pay it down. Especially at the beginning, it's going to be super important because you're going to have a really low line of credit. You're going to jack it up really quickly. Even if you're making a lot of money at your job and you're spending a lot, they don't care. If your credit limit is only this amount and you're, if it's only 1,000 and you're jacking it to 500, 600, 700, they're not going to like that. They're not going to reward you for that certain credit behavior. It's frustrating, I know, but don't hate the player, hate the game, I guess is what they say. Now, a big thing I want to mention is if you can't get a credit card, that's a really big frustrating thing for a lot of people trying to build their credit is they're trying to build their credit, so they say, all right, I want to go get a credit card. Well, a lot of times the bank will reject them because they don't have credit yet. And they're like, well, how am I supposed to build my credit if you guys won't give me a credit card? So if you can't do that, if you can't get an actual just regular free-floating credit card, you can get what's called a secured credit card. And there's tons of different options, great options, but basically what it is it's using your money that you actually have in your checking account, at your personal money. A lot of people, you got to realize when you're using a credit card, you're actually using the bank's money and then using yours to pay it off. When you use a secured credit card, you have to make a certain deposit with your own cash to secure and back that credit line amount. So like I said before, guys, when you get a credit card, make sure you pay off the balance, pay it off quickly, pay it off before the statement date, keep your utilization low, and you should be good to go. And as soon as you can, guys, make sure you request a credit increase. That's really, if you've done it for 6 months, 8 months, you have the same credit, don't let them bully you around. I mean, get on the phone, call the number on the back of your credit card, and say, hey, listen, I need this to be increased. I can't make certain purchases without jacking my utilization super high. There's a lot of time. I remember with my credit card, for example, when I first got it, they only had a $500 credit line. And I was like, okay, this needs jacked up. I've had it for a year, year and a half. It needs to be higher. So I called the number, and they were like, no, we can't do it or whatever. And I was like, okay, then I'm canceling it. And they were like, whoa, hold on, okay. We'll back off. So there's some negotiation that can definitely take place. I know it did for me. Then they finally raised it up to 1,500 or whatever it was at the time. But with some credit cards, they'll actually increase your limit automatically. They'll do it on their end, but a lot of times you're going to have to call and actually ask. And like I said, if they give you some pushback, say, okay, I'll find somebody else. And typically, they don't want to lose your business, so you can definitely have some room for negotiation there. Alrighty, guys, the next thing I want to talk about is becoming an authorized user on other people's credit cards. Now, if you, for some reason, can't get the secured credit card, you tried to get a regular credit card, that's not working, or, you're actually under 18, you can become authorized on someone that already has a good credit score. You can get authorized as a user on their credit card, and that'll increase your score as well. It'll show that you're an authorized user on their specific credit account with someone that's already has established credit. Alrighty, guys, the next thing you can do is take out a personal loan. Now, you can go to the bank. These loans can be for a variety of different reasons that you may or may not take these out. You're really going to have to weigh the pros and cons of, because loans have interest on them. Some don't. You can get away with not paying interest on some personal loans, but majority of the time you're going to have to pay some interest, which you're going to have to weigh out credit building effect it has versus the amount you're actually losing to interest. So it very well could be worth it to you, especially if you can't qualify for a regular credit card, authorized user credit card, secured credit card, whatever. It may be a valid option for you. Another thing that builds up your credit, guys, is simply, having car loans, a house loan, any of that sort of stuff. That is going to also help your credit get built. If you have a mom, dad, somebody close to you that has a good credit score, and you're looking to get a car, you're looking to get a house, whatever, you can actually have them co-sign on it and vouch for you. And you being on there with that cosigner, you're going to be able to build your credit and then actually be able to qualify for these loans. Last thing I want to talk about, guys, to build your credit is adding your bills to your credit report. Now, there's certain websites you can get on now where you can actually find your phone bill, have your rent payment, various bills you may or may not have. You can add that to your credit report in a lot of cases, which that in turn, it just shows, it's the same thing with payment history. It's just showing that you have a good reputation for paying back certain amounts that you have due to other people. Alrighty, guys, real quick to wrap up this video, I want to talk about mistakes to avoid. Definitely pay attention here because you do not want to make these mistakes. It's going to make all these other things not worth it if you're making these mistakes. So first thing I definitely want to mention, I've seen it personally, a lot of people, they'll just go get a credit card and they're like, woo, I got the credit card, we're good to go, my credit's going to go up. When you go to apply for a mortgage or a more major purchase that you need to take out a big loan for, they don't care if you only have one line of credit. They're like, okay, cool, you can pay off that credit card. What else do you have? You want to have multiple lines of credit to have a complete credit score. So that might mean multiple credit cards. That might mean having your phone bill and your utilities and a credit card and a car loan all into your credit history. They have to see multiple avenues of they need to see that your reputation is good in multiple avenues of payment that's due to other people. So you don't want to just be a one-trick pony with a credit card and think you're good to go. Yes, that's great and all, but you want to have multiple lines of credit. So if you don't have those other things like a car loan, house loan, whatever, you want to make sure it might make sense for you to get multiple credit cards. But just be careful, like we mentioned before, don't go ham and open a bunch of new accounts because that could be just as detrimental as not having enough lines of credit. Alright, guys, we already talked about keeping your utilization low. That's extremely important. So the last thing I want to talk about is avoiding unnecessary credit inquiries. So a lot of these credit checks, they'll say it doesn't affect your credit score. Check your score with no effect to your score or whatever. That's not always true when they're saying that. So any chance you can get, definitely try to avoid unnecessary credit inquiries. So you don't want to be checking it all the time, having a bank pull it all the time, because that throws up a red flag for the credit bureaus. When they see that you're running a credit check a lot, it doesn't look good on your end. So make sure you avoid that, guys. There's definitely some good apps out there to keep a relatively good idea of where you're heading, but just be careful where you're checking it, because some of these can be very detrimental to your actual credit score. All right, you guys, I think that about wraps it up. I hope you guys learned something. I hope this was digestible enough for you to actually apply to your own life. I'm really just here to help you guys out and share with you a little bit about what I know, so you guys can find value in that. And yeah, I think that about does it. So I'll see you guys in the next video.